April 2nd, 1996. A debut album arrives in stores with no photograph of its author anywhere on the cover. Just a doorway, a hallway, a warm light. The man who made it wanted his voice to walk in before his face did. He wanted the fame. He was also, in his own words, secretly afraid of it. The next day, on the other side of the news, an 18-year manhunt ended in a Montana cabin, and a sitting United States cabinet secretary died in a plane crash over Croatia. The whole country was looking at those two stories. Almost nobody was looking at the Quiet Soul record. It would take the long way to them. This is when it dropped. Maxwell's Urban Hang Suite. The debut album by Maxwell, born Gerald Maxwell Rivera, a Brooklyn kid, Haitian mother, Puerto Rican father, released April 2nd, 1996 on Columbia Records. 11 tracks, and they're not really 11 separate songs. It's built as a single arc, a song suite following one adult romance from the first encounter all the way to a proposal, recorded across New York and Chicago in 1994 and 95. Here's the thing you have to understand about its numbers. It was not a hit, not at first. It peaked at only number 37 on the Billboard 200, though on the R&B albums chart it went top 10. And even on the Billboard 200 it held on for 78 weeks, a year and a half of refusing to leave. Gold by that September, platinum the next spring, double platinum by 2002. This is not the story of an explosion. It's the story of a slow, patient burn that turned out to be right. So what does the suite actually sound like? Card 1, the architecture. It opens with an instrumental theme, moves through the meeting, the wanting, the doubt, and closes on a proposal. Sweet Lady, subtitled The Proposal Jam. You're not shuffling tracks, you're following a night and then a relationship in order. Card 2, the sound. Live instruments, not samples. Warm bass, real horns, real Rhodes piano. In an era when R&B was built on drum machines and loops, Maxwell hired a band. The obvious ancestors are all over it. Prince's Intimacy, Marvin Gaye's Grown and Sensual, and above all, the cool, jazzy hush of Sade. Card 3, the voice. A falsetto that treats desire as something patient and adult, not urgent. This is a record about wanting one person completely for a long time, an almost radical subject for 1996. Old soul played live, about grown love, sung soft. That's the suite. Where did this sound actually come from? Not where you'd guess. The most important door was British. Maxwell's demo reached Stuart Matthewman, Sade's own guitarist and saxophone player, through a contact at the record company who asked if he'd meet a new artist. Matthewman heard it and said, in his own words, "It's amazing, but it sounds like it's already done." The introduction came a little later through Carl Vanden Bossche, a percussionist who'd worked with Sade, who brought Maxwell by in person. Matthewman came aboard, and the fingerprints of Sade's Love Deluxe are all over this record because one of the people who made Sade's records helped make this one. The second door goes straight back to Motown. A songwriter named Leon Ware co-wrote one of this album's songs, Something Something. 20 years earlier, that same Leon Ware had co-written and co-produced Marvin Gaye's I Want You. So there is a direct two-step line, one man's pen, connecting this 1996 debut to one of the most sensual soul records ever made. And the third door is a guitar. Listen close and you'll hear Wah Wah Watson, Melvin Reagan, a member of Motown's own Funk Brothers, the man whose guitar is on The Temptations' Papa Was a Rolling Stone, and Marvin Gaye's Let's Get It On. He's playing on this record too. So the real lineage of Urban Hang Suite isn't the scene it got filed next to. It's Sade, and it's Motown, reaching directly through the actual hands that built both. The person who made this album possible inside the machine was an A&R executive at Columbia named Mitchell Cohen. He signed Maxwell in 1994 and did something labels rarely do with an unknown. He handed him full creative control from the start. By one account, Cohen's framing was that Maxwell wasn't making an R&B album or a black album. He was just making a record. Behind the board, the bulk of the album was produced by Maxwell himself, credited under his own alias, Mayuze, alongside a Chicago producer and engineer named Peter Mokran. whose earlier work included R. Kelly's first two albums. Stuart Matthewman produced a handful of the tracks on top of playing throughout. And then the strangest part. Maxwell finished the record, and Columbia didn't know what to do with it. The same label that had signed him with total confidence sat on the completed album for almost a year, unsure how to sell a quiet, conceptual, live instrument soul suite into a marketplace that was all hip-hop and drum machines. The record that would eventually go double platinum spent nearly a year in a drawer because nobody could figure out the marketing. Sometimes the thing that makes an album timeless is exactly what makes it hard to sell on arrival. There's an irony at the center of this record that's worth sitting with. Everyone who hears Urban Hang Suite hears Sade. The mood, the restraint, the jazz soul cool. It plays like a spiritual sequel to her records. One writer put it perfectly. It's one of the most Sade-esque records ever made without Sade, because she was never there. Sade Adu didn't write a note of it, didn't sing on it, wasn't in the building. The entire connection is through Matthewman, her collaborator, carrying her sound in his hands into someone else's debut. And the man who made it kept his own face off the cover on purpose, wanting the fame, and, as he'd say later, secretly afraid of it at the same time. A record haunted by an artist who was never in it, made by an artist who didn't want to be seen. That's the whole mood right there. Set it back down in April 1996. The same day Urban Hang Suite arrived, so did an instrumental record from the Beastie Boys. 2 weeks later, Rage Against the Machine's Evil Empire dropped and debuted at #1. A furious political rock record topping the chart while a soft romantic soul suite couldn't crack the top 30. 7 weeks earlier, on one single February day, both Tupac's All Eyes on Me and the Fugees' The Score had landed. And in the week Urban Hang Suite arrived, the #1 album in America was the Beatles' Anthology 2, with Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill, which owned most of that spring, sitting right behind it. That was the noise Maxwell's whisper was trying to be heard over. Outside the music, the news was loud too. One day after this album's release, April 3rd, 1996, two enormous stories broke at once. In Montana, the FBI arrested the Unabomber, ending an 18-year bombing campaign. And that same day, halfway around the world, Commerce Secretary Ron Brown and 34 others were killed when their plane crashed near Dubrovnik, Croatia. Two unrelated, era-defining stories, the same day, the day after Maxwell dropped. And a third story was unfolding that same spring, also out of Montana. 8 days before the album arrived, an armed standoff had begun near the town of Jordan between federal agents and a group called the Montana Freemen, and it ran 81 days, right across the album's release week, making Montana the home of two of the country's biggest stories at once, the Unabomber in his cabin and the Freemen on their ranch. And underneath all of it, quieter and slower, something was reshaping the very radio this record needed. 2 months earlier, a new telecommunications law had removed the limits on how many stations one company could own. Over the next year, more than 2,000 stations changed hands. The radio that Urban Hang Suite was trying to reach was, at that exact moment, consolidating into fewer and fewer hands, and getting harder for a slow-burn record to break into. Maxwell's patient little suite walked into the middle of all of that, and, in its own quiet way, it endured. Here's how the record actually won. The first single, Till the Cops Come Knockin', barely registered, a modest number 79 on the R&B chart, and it never touched the Hot 100 at all. If you were reading the charts in the spring of 1996, you'd have written this album off. Then, that summer, the second single, Ascension, Don't Ever Wonder. And that one broke through. The Hot 100, real radio, real momentum. And Ascension hides a surprising credit. It was co-written by a songwriter named Ital Shur, who would go on to co-write Santana's Smooth, the massive 1999 hit. Within about 7 weeks of Ascension arriving, the album was certified gold, and it kept climbing through the fall of 1996, finally reaching its Billboard 200 peak of number 37 about half a year after release, once Ascension connected. The record hadn't changed. The world finally caught up to it. And there's a fitting footnote. In 2021, 25 years after it came out, Ascension was certified platinum. Maxwell's first ever platinum single, earned a quarter-century late. The suite was patient. It's still collecting. By the late 90s, critics had a name and a shape for what Maxwell was part of. They called it neo-soul, and they grouped its breakout artists as a kind of core four: D'Angelo, Erykah Badu, Lauryn Hill, and Maxwell. But here's a precise, important distinction. That grouping is a critic's category, not a friendship. There's no evidence Maxwell and D'Angelo ever recorded together, toured together, or even shared a stage. Contrast that with Badu, whose connection to D'Angelo was real and direct. She opened for him in Texas in 1994 and got discovered that very night by his manager. Maxwell's link to the rest of neo-soul is a shelf critics put him on, not a room he was in. He came up separately, on a different label, with a different lineage. The Sade and Marvin Gaye thread we already traced. What he did earn, on his own, is real. A Grammy nomination for Best R&B Album in 1997. He lost to Tony Rich. 3 Soul Train Awards that same year. And in the summer of 1997, an MTV Unplugged set whose cover of Kate Bush's This Woman's Work is still remembered as one of the greatest performances that whole series ever aired. The genre he helped define went on to shape 20 years of R&B. We're not going to hand you a list of names claiming direct descent. That's the kind of clean quote this show doesn't fake. But the lane he opened is wide, and it's still full. To really place this record, you have to know what it was reacting against. The dominant sound of early 90s R&B was born a few miles away at Uptown Records, the home of hip-hop soul, R&B built on hip-hop's beats and samples. Its breakout was a young Mary J. Blige, a record this channel will tell you about another week. That harder sample-driven drum machine sound was everywhere Maxwell's suite was trying to breathe. And the word neo-soul itself? It wasn't a movement the artist named. It was a marketing category, coined by a manager named Kedar Massenberg, D'Angelo's manager, who'd go on to run Motown. He built a business around the label. So Maxwell sat at a strange intersection, reacting against the hip-hop soul that dominated the radio, and filed under a neo-soul brand he had no hand in creating, signed to a third label entirely. He belonged to none of the machines around him. He just made his record. In 2026, Maxwell is still unmistakably at it. He toured through 2025. He runs an annual cruise, literally branded the Urban Hang Suite Cruise, now in its 3rd year. He's announced a new album. 30 years on, the quiet record that Columbia couldn't figure out how to sell is a whole identity. But this chapter has to close somewhere heavier. In October 2025, D'Angelo died. He and Maxwell had been forever grouped together as the artists who brought soul back to the body and the instrument in the mid-90s. Never close collaborators, but bound in the culture's memory all the same. We told D'Angelo's story on this channel, and when he passed, Maxwell wrote just 7 words. Because you were, we are all because. 2 artists, 2 separate paths, 1 shelf in history. One of them is gone now, far too soon. The other is still on a stage, still singing patiently, still carrying that sound forward for the both of them. Next time on When It Dropped,